So, ang ating outline, ako, ang haba din ng lecture na to guys, huwag kayong matutulog So, we will enumerate the different causes of disorders of coagulation and appropriate management. So, ang outline ito. So, just a review ulit of our hemostasis. Ano ba yung purpose ng hemostasis? This is to ensure that coagulation mechanisms are in place. It is activated when there is an injury and not unnecessarily activated. So, dapat hindi siya mag-activate kung wala ka ng mga ongoing bleeding. And it functions to restore our tissue, blood flow, after repair of our injury. So, yung 3 main steps, review lang to, second year to, di ba, na hema. So, we have our primary hemostasis, consisting of our vasoconstriction and platelet plug formation, which will entail also, di ba sabay sila, bababa na yung coagulation cascade and then after our fibrinolysis. So again, just a diagram. So when we have an injury to the vessel, magva-vasoconstrict. So magdidikit yung vessel na nasugatan. Pupunta yung platelet. There is a activation of your platelets and formation of your platelet plug. So your plug is further reinforced by the activation of your coagulation cascade. There is formation of your fibrin. So ngayon, kapag na-plug na yung iyong vessel, so meron kang excess na fibrin dyan. So there is fibrinolysis naman, no? To remove the excess clot and para ma-prevent mo yung magkakaroon ka ng mga embolism. So this is just a diagram of our coagulation cascade consisting of our intrinsic pathway and extrinsic pathway. Tapos we'll go down to your common pathway and fibrinolysis. So when dealing with coagulation, bleeding and coagulation, so this is really a delicate balance of your factors, no? Your coagulants and your anticoagulants. So the blood should be fluid enough for free flow, and in cases of injury should be able to produce your clot adequately. So firstly, punta muna tayo for platelets kasi yun yung primary hemostasis. So for platelets, there are specific, for platelet function, we can do tests with platelet aggregometry, flow cytometry, platelet secretion, clot retraction test, and your procoagulant activity. For your coagulation testing naman, we have our quantitative estimation of our fibrinogen, our coagulation factor assays, and qualitative assays. So yung test for primary hemostasis or test for our platelets. So remember, no, with platelets, usually there are two problems. So kapag yung patient mo is bleeding or having easy bruisability, you have two problems. So either there is a quantitative problem. So quantitative meaning bilang, no? So your platelet can be either increased or decreased, no? So kapag decreased, obvious naman, nagpa-CBC ka. Platelet count mo, obvious naman, yung platelet count mo mababa, kaya siya nagbi-bleed. So this can be easily requested through your CBC, complete blood count. But if your platelets are normal in number pero nagbi-bleed pa rin si patient, ano nangyayari, no? So usually, this is a qualitative defect, no? Normal lang bilang, but the quality is abnormal. Hindi maganda yung platelets mo. So you can, naka-include pa rin dito yung bleeding time kasi it is still regularly, routinely requested, pero it has been rendered, ano ba tawag dito? Unreliable. So ideally, we should not request for our bleeding time anymore. So yung mas, ano ba tawag dito? Mas specific test is our platelet function assessment. Platelet aggregometry to. Pero it's costly kasi, around mga 15K. So, for those who can afford, GORA lang. Pero, if not, we will rely clinically, no? And base it on our physical findings, and history. And of course, do not forget your blood smear also. So there can be morphologic abnormalities of your platelets as well. Baka akala nyo sa PBS, ang tinitingnan lang natin, red blood cell. No, we also assess our platelets. If there are giant platelets, if there are degranulation, no, baka meron siyang underlying hematologic disorder. Yan. So, sorry, PFA pala is platelet function analyzer. So this is for laboratory monitoring of your platelet function. So, it is globally a new test, although yun nga, quite costly. Ang advantage niya, non-invasive. So, parang kumuha ka lang ng CBC and is very sensitive. However, the result should be interpreted in the context of either a simultaneously or recently drawn full blood count. So, kailangan newly extracted yung blood mo, fresh sample. And your platelet count na mabababa will have a prolonged clotting time even if your platelets don't have any abnormality. So usually, yung platelet aggregometry or yung PFA, we request it for qualitative platelet disorders and not for quantitative. Kasi pag quantitative, parang more or less straightforward na siya eh. Yung bilang yung problema. Pero pag normal, so you have to assess the platelet function. So again, I included the bleeding time. So ideally, dapat it should monitor your platelet function. How is it done? So sa mga medtech dyan, di ba, if you recall, ang gagawin kasi dyan, your medtech will incise, no? Maghihiwa siya sa skin ng a small incision, and then ita-timer niya. How long bago tumigil yung bleeding? So that is called as the clotting time. So it is not very reliable kasi very operator dependent. Paano ka ang bigat ng kamay or ang laki ng hiwa ni medtech? Di ang tagal di ba? Ang tagal mag-form ng platelet plug. So paano kung hindi agad na on ni medtech yung timer niya? So di-range na agad yung results. O kaya nag-cellphone siya, nalingat siya, nag-stop na pala bleed, di pa niya na-stop yung timer niya. So ano siya, very unreliable and can vary from each institution and very operator dependent nga. So anyway, ang story lang dito is don't use your bleeding time. Okay? Okay, so for secondary hemostasis naman, so if you're really looking for a platelet function test, it should be the PFA, your platelet function analyzer, or your platelet aggregometry for qualitative platelet disorders, okay? So, for secondary hemostasis, so ang secondary hemostasis, ito na yung ating coagulation cascade, di ba? So, if we are trying to determine a test for our extrinsic pathway, we do our ProTime. And then, if we want to test for our intrinsic, wrong spelling pa, sorry, intrinsic, so we do our activated partial thromboplastin time or our PTT. So, ano nga ito? Para lang matandaan, no? ProTime, PET yun, PET, PET, kasi extrinsic. Pag APTT, PIT, PITT, no? Kasi intrinsic pathway. Yung clotting time naman, so usually nare-request pa rin yon. Clotting time, bleeding time, more or less the test is the same yung sa bleeding time. So in modern times talaga. In recent times na talaga, ideally X na yan. Wag niyo na yan i-request. So you should just request for your CBC, PT-PTT if you're trying to determine kung meron siyang coagulation defect. So yan. So for monitoring your prothrombin time, again, PET, it tests your extrinsic pathway. So sa extrinsic pathway, we determine the activity of our vitamin K dependent factors. Ito board exam questions, 'di ba? Yung factors 2, 7, 9, and 10. Ano nga to? 1972. So sa ProTime, yung factors 1972. Okay. So ang normal value niya is 12 to 14 seconds. Actually, pwede hanggang 15 seconds. So you can also see sa ProTime, meron siyang kasamang INR. So yung INR was, ano bang tawag doon? Was developed to standardize the reporting of your ProTime. So ang normal values na is 0.8 to 1.2. But bear in mind that the ProTime actually was, ano bang tawag doon? Created to monitor Coumadin therapy and Coumadin therapy only. So yung warfarin use to ensure that your patient is adequately anticoagulated, you will use your INR. So di ba ang target usually pag nag-anticoagulate ka with warfarin is 2 to 2.5. So there is no other use for your INR except for your warfarin therapy. So you will encounter nito talaga when you go into residency for hematology clearance kasi the INR is the range, no, kunwari 2.5. Pero yung ProTime mo naman, halimbawa, is 15 seconds, kunwari lang, 15 seconds. And your INR is medyo the range, sabihin natin 2. So as long as your ProTime is normal, and your patient is not taking your warfarin, so you don't need to use your INR for analysis, okay? So usually, the ProTime will become prolonged if there is a 55% decrease of your normal factor 7 activity. Okay, so tandaan niyo yung sa INR ha, kasi basta pag nag-a-assess kayo ng PT-PTT, pag nag-a-assess kayo ng ProTime, know why you are requesting for your ProTime. So if it is for pre-op concern, so use only the results. If you are using for warfarin effectivity, use your INR, okay? Huwag kayong matatakot dun sa pag naka-INR siya, wag niyo namang pansinin yung kanyang seconds. Baka matakot kasi kayo, kunwari 56 seconds siya, ang INR niya ay 2.5. So adequately anticoagulated ka. So goods 'yon, okay? So usually the PT prolongs when there is extrinsic pathway factor deficiencies. It can be inherited or acquired, such as your DIC or taking of your anticoagulant drugs. Meron din tayong tinatawag na thrombin time. Although, hindi naman natin to usually nare-request and ginagamit. So, just for just for information, FYI lang, hindi ko na i-discuss yan. And so sinama ko din dito yung activated clotting time. So this one naman is a very specific test that is used during coronary bypass, no, by cardio and TCVS. So it monitors the heparin anticoagulation at the OR, usually during vascular surgeries, with a value of 90 to 120 seconds. So kasi yung ProTime, it takes about siguro mga 1 hour bago lumabas yung test. And usually the ACT, kasi when you are doing your bypass or vascular surgeries, the surgeon will be injecting heparin into the blood to keep it flowing, no, free flowing and anticoagulated yung blood. And they usually use the heparin, the unfractionated heparin, kasi it has a shorter duration of life. So during the surgery lang nila kailangan na highly anticoagulated properly anticoagulated yung patient para hindi siya nagbabara sa bypass machine. Tapos yung surgery mo will be smooth sailing. So doon lang ginagamit yung activated clotting time. So we do not usually routinely use it. So sa kanila lang yan. Meron yung maliit na device na para lang siyang drop kit, para siyang test kit na ganun. So next up, we have our activated partial thromboplastin time, or our APTT, which detects our intrinsic pathway. So it is dependent on the activity of all our coagulation factors except factor 7 and factor 13 with a normal value of 25 to 40 seconds. So usually, ginagamit natin to for heparin treatment and when we are screening for hemophilia. So it can be deranged with heparin use, with the use of your thrombin inhibitors, no? And it is only prolonged if coagulation factors are reduced to less than 30% ng normal. So, ulit-ulit, intrinsic pathway, factor deficiencies. So, it prolongs kapag meron kang mga deficiencies in your factor 12, 11, 8, and 9. If you recall, di ba yung ating hemophilia, meron tayong hemophilia A and hemophilia B, no? So, usually, sa pro time yun nagpro-prolong. Kasi di ba ano yun, yung pag hemophilia B, ang ano ko doon, ang code ko doon, benign. So, hemophilia B, factor 9. Hemophilia A, A8. Parang rhyme sila, factor 8. So, usually, we use our PTT to screen for hemophilia. So, it can be either inherited then, pwedeng acquired through our DIC, or even a little bit of it affected with your warfarin therapy. So usually, kapag mga hemophilia, they can also develop what we call our antibodies or our inhibitors against your factor. So sa PTT, lahat magpo-prolong yon. Also, if you have a lupus anticoagulant, like your SLE and your, ano nga tag dito, ano nga yung sa DRVVT, for your APAS, no? For your APAS. So, it can also detect a possible lupus anticoagulant problem. And with the use of your non-fractionated heparin therapy. So, paulit-ulit lang para hindi nyo makalimutan. So, which ones are tested by your ProTime, PET, PTT, PITT, so PIT, okay, and which factors are involved. So, what are the implications for therapy? So, magkaiba for congenital and acquired. So, always, sa bleeding and coagulation talaga, kailangan natin, so the best predictor for a bleeding tendency is your history and physical examination. So no test, no laboratory test can overcome the power of your history and physical examination, okay? So make sure you take note of the history, kung meron ba sa pamilyang lahi ng hemophilia, what medications are the patient taking, if there are antiplatelet drugs, anticoagulation drugs, so kailangan alam nyo lahat yan. Even supplements, herbals, no, especially herbals, can also cause derangements or abnormalities in your bleeding and coagulation. And so if your patient is on antiplatelet and anticoagulant therapy. So what are the drugs affecting anticoagulation? So sa primary hemostasis, yung platelet plug formation. So platelet nga yung problema di ba? So ang tatanong mo sa kanya, antiplatelet drugs. So specific drugs like your NSAIDs can also cause platelet dysfunction. So yung mga celecoxib, arcoxia, ganyan can cause NSAID induced platelet defect. And of course, yung very known na mga antiplatelets, aspirin, clopidogrel, cilostazol, okay? For your coagulation cascade naman, we have our IV anticoagulants such as our heparins and our oral anticoagulants such as our warfarin and the NOACs, yung mga novel oral anticoagulants such as our dabigatran, epixaban, no, yung mga bago na. For fibrinolysis, we also have fibrinolytic agents. Ito yung ginagamit, yung streptokinase, di ba? For acute myeloid infarction, we can give our streptokinase, and for our acute stroke, ischemic stroke. Okay? Pati yung T plus minogen. So just some examples again of our antiplatelet medications. Ang dami, di ba? So we have our tiropavan, eptifatidide. Usually ito ginagamit naman to mga sa sa OR, intra-op, yung pag yung pag mga nagba-bypass vascular surgeries. So at least we are familiar with aspirin and clopidogrel, its site of action, how is it given, and your plasma, half-time plasma life. And where is it excreted? Is it hepatic or renal? And ito, very important to. So, usually kasi we do get referrals for hematology clearances prior to surgery. So, kailangan, kaya importante lahat malaman to, kasi kailangan, you should be aware. So, your aspirin has a half-life of 20 minutes, but it has a hepatic excretion. So kapag may liver disease yung patient mo, so always take that in consideration. And how many days do you need to discontinue your medications prior to OR? So pag aspirin, 7 days. Pag clopidogrel, 5 days, no? Does it increase your PT-PTT? No, of course not. Kasi anti-platelet siya. Hindi naman siya coagulant, no? Hindi naman siya anti-coagulant eh. So, of course, your PT-PTT should be normal. Usually, there is no antidote. If you really need an antidote, a bleeding patient, kung halimbawa, you can give your platelet transfusion instead. So, for tiropavan, you can do emergency hemodialysis. Okay, so next yung ating, I just wanted to show the historical development of our anticoagulants, of our oral anticoagulants. So for the longest time, ang ginagamit talaga natin, warfarin, since the 1950s. And only in 2006 were the novel oral anticoagulants developed. And ngayon, these days, no, mas ano na siya, mas freely used na yung NOACs. Before kasi talagang warfarin lang talaga yung ginagamit. Although there are certain diseases talaga that may warrant a warfarin use over your novel oral anticoagulants. So ito namang table na to, kanina nag-present tayo ng different types of antiplatelets. So now we have different types of anticoagulants and thrombolytics. So yung pinaka-common sa atin, what we have, our unfractionated heparin versus our low molecular weight heparin. So iba-iba rin yung site of action nila. Factor 2A and 10A for unfractionated, and then factor 10A and 3A for low molecular weight. So parang katulad lang nun sa platelets, we must always be aware of their half-time, plasma half-life, and where is it excreted, no? And how many hours do you need to discontinue your drug when you are requested to do a hematology clearance prior to OR? So usually, yung unfractionated heparin, we use it for pre-op kasi short half-life and you can discontinue it 6 hours prior to the procedure. So ito talaga yung ginagamit, for example, if you have a totally occluded vessel on your, kahit saan, on your heart or your DVT or on your foot. So the patient needs continuous anticoagulation for the leg, kunwari nasa paa, for the leg not to be gangrenous or not to die, no? Para may blood flow pa rin siya. Pero, magsa-surgery kasi siya. So, of course, the surgeon would not want to operate pag ang high risk for bleeding. So, at least with heparin, you can discontinue the drug 6 hours before the procedure. So, anticoagulated pa rin adequately yung patient and not too much anticoagulated before the patient goes to the OR. So for the testing, yes, it will prolong your PTT. Sa low molecular weight, actually, it can pwede rin naman siyang mag-increase ng PTT. Okay? And usually there are antidotes, pero if you time the discontinuation of your heparins adequately prior to OR, ano naman siya, you rarely have to use your antidotes. At ito, ito very important din to, ito na-encounter ko to din sa mga residents that when the patient is admitted for ACS, acute coronary syndrome, so parang para siyang knee-jerk reaction, ay nag-MI, bigyan ng heparin. Pero they fail to consider, halimbawa, the patient is a CKD patient, so they give the same dose, no? 0.6 ml sub QQ12. Kaso CKD yung patient, so nagbi-bleed yung patient kasi hindi niya masikrit, no? So the drug stays in the body longer, so of course, there is a high risk for bleeding. So always consider yung mechanism of excretion niya. Also with unfractionated heparin, halimbawa, kailangan mo siyang i-heparinize, but you fail to consider that the patient has liver cirrhosis, for example. Ito lagi ko rin na-encounter to. The patient is on heparin, low molecular weight heparin, pero the patient is already cirrhotic. parang recently meron akong ganong referral na pro time niya is 20 seconds na on admission, yet they still gave heparin kasi daw nag-MI. Tapos sabi ko, but your patient is already adequately anticoagulated. So why do you need, parang hindi mo na kailangan ng extra anticoagulation, and then they will refer because the patient is bleeding. 'Di ba? Parang ano, parang nalito. Meron na siyang anticoagulated blood, and just because nag-MI siya, you want to give anticoagulation without checking. So, in turn, the side effect is of course bleeding, no? So, always assess your patients then. Okay, so just for unfractionated heparin, so it binds and increases the antithrombin 3 and inactivates the factor 2A and 10A. So, hindi ko na to masyadong i-discuss yan. So, for standard dose, so we still give this regular doses for therapeutic anticoagulation. If there is a high risk for bleeding during and after surgery, so you should stop it at least 6 hours before surgery. And if needed talaga, you have to restart it at least 12 hours post-op with close monitoring. So for thromboprophylaxis, so sa mga, if you have encountered already patients with APAS, yung mga meron silang hypercoagulable state, so usually they are given 5,000 units of heparin as prophylaxis para hindi magkaroon ng thrombosis to prevent fetal loss and also thrombosis formation for the mother. Yan. So, it is low risk for hemorrhage during surgery or anesthesia, yung unfractionated. So, even though yung unfractionated heparin kasi usually, if the patient is admitted, is given as a drip. And then we have to monitor our PTT every 6 hours and adjust the dose accordingly. So, medyo mahirap siyang gamitin, but meron pa rin siyang indications, okay? So, yung next slide naman natin, yung ating low molecular weight heparin, yung ating enoxaparin. So, this one is actually a lot easier to administer kasi it comes in a pre-filled syringe and you just inject sub-Q. Tapos, there's no need for frequent monitoring. So, but still, you have to be familiar with its half-life, no? And it still have its uses naman. So, sorry, hindi naman it still have its uses. It is more commonly used nowadays. Except, yun nga, yung for those needing anticoagulation pre-op. So, mas mahirap kasing mag-time ng enoxaparin na discontinuation kasi dapat 12 hours siya pre-op, di ba? Itatanggalin, i-withhold prior to OR. So, meron din tayong iba't ibang types pa. Our dalteparin, ano pa nga yung tinsaparin, ganyan. Yun yung mga low molecular weight heparins natin. So, just a comparison between your standard heparin and low molecular weight. So, by molecular weight, mas maliit yung low molecular, kaya nga siya low molecular weight. Yung monitoring ng ProTime has to be dose-adjusted Q6. Clearance is different as well. Hepatic for our standard, renal for the low molecular weight. It's a very important side effect, what we call our heparin-induced thrombocytopenia. So there is a phenomenon called HIT, wherein there is thrombocytopenia due to the formation of antibodies from your heparin. So instead of causing anticoagulation, it promotes thrombosis formation. So with standard heparin, there is a higher incidence of HIT compared to your low molecular weight. There is a higher risk for bleeding for standard versus the low molecular weight. And siguro ito sa OM dati, so sa OM nga pala ako nag-residency kasi ng internal medicine. So when we were residents in training, during that time, walang available na enoxaparin in the hospital pharmacy, but there was an abundance of heparin. So we got to use heparin all the time with our MI patients. So we had to do frequent monitoring and watch out for bleeding. Sometimes when we anticoagulated our patients, pagdating mo sa ICU sa morning, yung urine bag nila, hematuria na, no? So hindi na monitor ng maayos. So, ibig sabihin, over-anticoagulated. Although, yun nga, it still has its uses and is much cheaper. So, for our oral anticoagulants naman, of course, ang ating bida, the OG anticoagulant is our warfarin, which inhibits the synthesis of our vitamin K dependent factors. So reversal of the prolonged pro time, kapag walang bleeding, you can just stop your medications and then repeat your PT after 3 to 4 days and wait for your target INR, no? If there is the INR is overly prolonged, you can give your vitamin K rescue doses either through IV or through ORM. Unfortunately, yung tablet dose has been phased out sa Mercury, but we do have the generic forms available. Okay? So if there is an active bleeding, halimbawa nag-warfarin ka and then the patient presented at the ER with massive hematochezia or bilena, so you need an immediate reversal of your warfarin, then you can transfuse your FFP or give your recombinant factor 7A. So if the patient is for surgery, you always have to check your pro time prior to surgery. Okay? So, yun lang naman sa warfarin, you just have to monitor. As compared with your novel oral anticoagulants or your NOAC, so marami na tayong available, the Bigatran, Rivaroxaban, Apixaban, these are all available in the Philippines. Edoxaban, I think not yet. So only the Bigatran has the thrombin enzyme target while others have the factor 10A. So always remember then yung kanilang clearance time and half-life. With the NOACs, ang advantage niya, you don't have to monitor. You don't have to monitor your PTT or your pro time, no? No need na siya. Although there is still a risk for bleeding, primary indications would be for your cardiac abnormalities pag merong mga valvular defects or AF, atrial fibrillations. Nowadays, I see also neurologists using the NOACs for anticoagulation for CVD patients at high risk for recurrence for stroke. So yung may mga AF, no, binibigyan nila siya ng NOACs instead of the warfarin. So, ang difference lang, hindi pala yung difference. Only exception is for APAS. Studies have shown that with the use of novel oral anticoagulants in APAS, tend to have a higher incidence of thrombosis, no? So for APAS, we still use our warfarin. Okay, next slide. So this one naman, so this I just got this from Medscape. So this just shows where the medications interact with our coagulation cascade, kung saan sila nagkakaroon ng mechanism of action, where it is directed. So, just for review lang. Okay, so now, tapos na tayo sa ating anticoagulants and antiplatelets. We now move orders again can either be inherited or acquired. So, for inherited, we have vascular problems, platelet problems, coagulation, and fibrinolytic. And for acquired, more or less the same naman. So yun lang naman talaga yung problem sa bleeding. Either it's a problem with your platelets or it's a problem with your clotting factors. So how do we approach a patient who is bleeding? So di ba meron tayo kanina from the first lecture, approach to a patient with anemia. So now we are presented with a patient with a bleeding disorder. So do not forget or do not baliwalain, disregard your history and physical examination and of course your family history. Kasi, yun nga what I mentioned earlier, nothing precludes a good history and physical examination. So the best predictor of bleeding pre-op is still history and PE. So for the history, I mentioned this earlier. So you ask, meron bang medications taken, any history of recurrent bleeding, family history, ganyan. Physical examinations, you also have to examine where is the patient bleeding, ganyan. And we also have our laboratory examination, of course, using screening tests and specific tests. So yan. So just to elaborate, so for the clinical features of bleeding, so kailangan mo lang siyang i-differentiate. Nasaan ba ang problema? So a patient comes to you with bruising. So nasaan ba yung problema? So nasa platelet ba siya? Is it with primary hemostasis or coagulation, secondary hemostasis? So ang dali lang niya, hindi man madali, pero parang there is a distinct finding for each one. So kapag platelet, the sites of bleeding would include usually mucocutaneous. So the skin, mucocutaneous, so nose bleeding, gum bleeding, GI tract, even bladder, no, ng pwede kang hematuria. As compared to coagulation disorders, usually nandun sila sa soft, deep in the soft tissue. So sa mga muscles, mucous membranes, joints, and muscles. So which one will present with petechiae? Petechiae usually happens with platelet disorders. Sa coagulation disorders, wala. Pero yung ecchymosis or large, deep hematomas, usually it happens with coagulation disorders. Rare lang yon or small lang pag may platelet disorders. Muscle bleeding or bleeding in the joints, hemarthrosis, is extremely rare in platelet disorders and more common in coagulation disorders. So, yung timing din, yung timing ng pagdugo. So, if the patient is bleeding immediately after the cut or scratches, then it is most probably a platelet problem. Remember yung kanina, yung ating vascular, yung ating injury. So, the first step would be vasoconstriction and then platelet plug formation. So, kapag yung sugat, hindi tumitigil yung pagdurugo, ibig sabihin, hindi functional yung platelet plug niya. Hindi ma-plug ng platelet, kaya ayaw tumigil. Sa coagulation disorders, hindi. Titigil yan. Kasi, functional yung platelet mo. So, magkakaroon siya ng platelet plug. Pero, after the surgery or trauma or days after, makikita mo, biglang nagre-rebleed yung lesion mo. Kasi hindi siya nagkaroon ng fibrin. So, hindi siya nagkaroon ng fibrin formation. Kasi may problem yung coagulation mo. So, sa platelet disorders naman, immediate. Ayaw talagang tumigil sa simula pa lang. No? Kasi, yun nga, hindi ka makapag-platelet plug formation. So just an illustration. So ito yung sa platelet dysfunction or platelet disorder. Usually you have bruises as compared to your coagulation defects. You have bleeding in your joints, hemarthrosis, no? And deep tissue muscle bleeds. So what are the disorders of hemostatic mechanism? So usually it depends on the involvement of your platelet and clotting factors. Yung transfusion naman, treatment, so usually yung transfusion, we only reserve it for those with active bleeding. So kung halimbawa platelet defect and causing hematoma, petechiae, you don't need platelet transfusion for that. Pero kung meron siyang bleeding, yun, so dun papasok yung platelet transfusion. We can also give pharmacologic agents and clotting factors and other inhibitors, no? Tranexamic acid included. So certain disorders such as our vasculopathies, yung mga may mga vasculitis, whether it is acquired or inherited, can also cause bleeding because of the inflammatory or immune processes that damage the blood vessel walls. So ang problem dito actually is not the platelet or not the coagulation factors na may defect, but actually your blood vessel. Yung blood vessel mo ang very prone to breakage. Kaya nagkakaroon ng hematoma or petechiae. So in clinical practice, acquired disorders are found more frequently and can be the effect of drugs as well or deficiencies. For platelets naman, it can be either inherited. Yung mga qualitative platelet disorders can be inherited or acquired. So, marami din siyang classification. It can be due to a defect of your platelet membrane glycoprotein. So, ito yung mga example ng mga um, inherited platelet membrane glycoprotein defects. It does happen pero extremely rare, no? Extremely rare. Sa whole time ko, parang I've only encountered one patient with an inherited qualitative platelet disorder, and his um, presentation was recurrent hematuria. Although ano siya, Singaporean, so doon siya na-diagnose. I don't think we have the tests yet here in the Philippines. So, ang second abnormality naman is wherein there is abnormalities in your platelet granules. So, if you recall yung ating mga cells, di ba? Yung, halimbawa, yung white blood cells natin, like our segmenters, we usually have granules in the cytoplasm. So, these granules contain proteins depending on the function. No? So, pag platelet, ganun din. Meron siyang granules dun sa loob ng kanyang cytoplasm, which will be used by the platelets for aggregation and parang for a proper platelet function. Ayan. So another problem with qualitative platelet defects, it can be a platelet coagulant activity, or there is a problem in signal transduction and secretion. So the most common congenital bleeding disorder na hereditary is what we call our von Willebrand disease. So it can either be quantitative, so again, bilang, kulang ang von Willebrand, or qualitative or abnormal von Willebrand factor. So ano ba yung von Willebrand factor? If you remember, di ba, yung platelet plug. So kapag there is an injury, the platelets will go to the site of injury along with vasoconstriction. So how will they form the platelet plug? So actually, yung von Willebrand factor, siya yung nagsaserve as the adhesive, no? So yung stickiness, yung gaano ba kadikit yung platelet, yun yung von Willebrand. So kapag meron kang von Willebrand disease, you can either have the type 1, which is the most common form. So, meron kang partial quantitative deficiency. So, kunwari, dapat 100% yung von Willebrand mo. So, meron ka lang 50%. So, that is a partial quantitative deficiency. So, this can be tested and we have it available in the Philippines. So, that's the type 1. Type 2 naman is the qualitative. So, ibig sabihin, you do have your von Willebrand, but the quality of your von Willebrand is abnormal. So, hindi siya ganon kadikit. So, hindi rin magdidikit-dikit yung mga platelets mo. And type 3, the least common, is the most severe, is the complete absence. Grabe to, no? Complete absence. So, you don't have von Willebrand factor. So, that's very difficult because with every injury, there is no capacity to form a platelet plug. So, other forms, yung acquired, usually drug-induced, no? If you have lymphoproliferative disorders, tumors, and autoimmune diseases also can affect your von Willebrand. So for the treatment, we do give our desmopressin, which is a synthetic analog of our vasopressin, increasing both factor 8 and von Willebrand factor 3 to 5 times in 30 minutes. So for those diagnosed with von Willebrand disease, if the patient is undergoing surgery, we can give it preoperatively for prophylactic dose. No, it also has an intranasal form. So yung immediate effect niya, kasi ano siya, vasopressin kasi siya, so vasoconstriction yung effect, di ba? So there's flushing, increased heart rate, and even can cause headache, no? And should not be given for children less than 3 years old. For those unresponsive to our vasopressin, we can opt to give our cryoprecipitate, our fresh frozen plasma, or our factor 7 and von Willebrand concentrate. Okay, so next na tayo. So sa von Willebrand factor, it is the most common form of a qualitative platelet disorder. So yung next problem naman natin is a quantitative problem. So yung bilang na. So yung bilang na yung kulang. So it can be also inherited or acquired, but the acquired form is more frequent. So there is either decreased platelet formation and normal platelet survival time due to radiation, drugs, malignancies, no, hematologic disorders, or there can be increased platelet degradation or platelet deposit in the spleen with decreased platelet survival. So usually acquired din mga infections, DIC, autoimmune disorders, hematologic disorders, cancers. So with acquired platelet disorders, how do we define? So the normal platelet count is 150,000. So if anything less than 150,000 is called thrombocytopenia and can be caused by inadequate bone marrow production, splenic sequestration, DIC. We even have what we call a dilutional thrombocytopenia or immunogenic or autoimmune mediated. So meron din tayong tinatawag na platelet dysfunction from primary hematologic disorders, yung mga myeloproliferative disease, myelodysplastic syndromes, no, from liver failure, liver disease, no, DIC. Okay, so you can use your vasopressin for platelet dysfunction due to uremia, liver disease, and patient on aspirin who are scheduled for your coronary artery bypass. Pero if there's no bleeding naman, you don't need to treat. So ito lang for pre-op. So the common example of an acquired thrombocytopenia disorder is what we call our ITP. So idiopathic, bago na yung nomenclature niyan, it's no more, previously kasi, yung cause niya was not known. So that's why it's idiopathic. Pero recent studies have already pointed out an immune etiology. So it's now called immune thrombocytopenic purpura. So usually it is found in children, but it can also occur in adults. And it is a diagnosis of exclusion. So when you are presented with a patient with petechiae or gum bleeding epistaxis with a platelet count of halimbawa 10,000, tapos you want to consider an ITP, you should first eliminate all other possible etiologies. So check mo, wala ba siyang the patient has no uremia, wala siyang CKD, no liver disorder, no infection ongoing, no use of drugs, no use of herbal supplements. So once you have eliminated everything, that is the only time that you will consider an immune thrombocytopenic purpura. And is usually managed medically, okay? So yun, ano ba yung next? So for the coagulopathies naman, meaning yung coagulation natin yung problem, no? Madali lang naman silang i-test. So if you are suspecting a possible deficiency in your our clotting factors, so meron tayong assays. So ganun lang ang pag-request ng test. Halimbawa for hemophilia, benign, so hemophilia B, factor 9. So, just request factor 9 assay. So, pag mas mababa sa normal, so that means meron siyang defect. So, ito I think for the factors, yun lang naman yung kailangan nating familiar with. We have to be familiar with the hemophilia A, which occurs more frequently than your hemophilia B. Okay, so factor 8 and factor 9. So ito, so hemophilia, if you're not yet familiar, is an X-linked recessive condition. So siguro mga 99.9% of the time, hemophilia occurs in males. Merong one case report in the Philippines of a female having hemophilia A. I think hemophilia A siya. So only one female ang reported na meron in the Philippines. So we have 3 types. The classical hemophilia, factor 8, and then the Christmas disease, our factor 9, and not so common, the factor 11 deficiency. So this usually presents with unexplained bleeding in young males, usually under the age of 1. So pag meron kang severe hemophilia, it is inborn, hereditary, so it will present in the newborn, okay? Usually, you can find joint and muscle bleeding leading to arthropathy. So what is the screening test? So if there is a strong family history, like kunwari si lolo may hemophilia. And then of course, it is an X-linked recessive condition. So yung anak niya na babae will be the carrier. So si babae will not be symptomatic, but pag nagkaanak na lalaki yung babae na anak ni lolo, ang gulo. So yung apo ng hemophiliac, if lalaki, will automatically have hemophilia, okay? So it can either be a mild, moderate, or severe type. So how do we classify? So for hemophilias, even A and B, so ang normal, factor level, of course, 100%, no? So if you have a mild form, ang laki ng range, di ba? If you have 6 to 50% of the normal factor level, so that means a mild hemophilia. So usually for mild, they rarely have bleeding episodes talaga unless exacerbated by trauma. Halimbawa, nag-marathon si mild hemophilia. So due to the excessive trauma to the knee, due to the long run, yun, biglang mamamaga yung knee niya. So, pero pag walang trauma, they rarely present with spontaneous bleeding. So, a moderate one is 1 to 5%. Imagine guys, kailangan lang natin ng 6% of our factors para maging para hindi tayo magkaroon ng spontaneous bleeding, no? So, yung moderate is 1 to 5%. So, kapag severe, less than 1% of your factors that would present na with spontaneous bleeding. And ang sad thing about hemophilia is that they live a long life, no? It's not like cancer na you die agad if untreated. So these patients, usually naman there is treatment, no? There is a factor replacement therapy. So for those with severe or moderate, they can give this prophylactically. For some mild, if they don't have episodes naman, they can just be given as needed. So if they have bleeding episodes. Pero yung mild and moderate, kailangan may continuous supply yan. Like every week, nag-i-inject sila ng factor replacements. However, again, it is costly. No, it is available, but it is costly. So most of the patients are unable to inject. So they lead long lives, but debilitating, poor quality of life. No, meron silang mga severe arthropathies. They can't walk. Tapos meron na silang ang tawag doon, yung parang yung joints, yung matitigas na kasi nga na sila meron na silang arthropathy. So they usually become PWDs, ganyan. And yung for hemophilias kasi there should be genetic counseling talaga. So to advise those with family history of hemophilia to not really or if they want to have children, not to have too many children, no? Kasi talagang, although syempre nakakaawa naman, who are we to dictate their lives? Pero talagang, here, locally, dito kasi ako sa Laguna, there is a town here na talagang there is a community of hemophilia kasi yung family ng hemophilia sobrang daming anak, ganyan. So, lumaki na lumaki yung community niya. And it's so difficult talaga when they go into adulthood, no? So, how many factors do we need, factor 8 concentrates do we need for hemostasis? So, for spontaneous hemorrhage, we just need 1%, guys. So, para hindi siya magkaroon ng spontaneous hemorrhage. For moderate trauma, 4 to 8. Hemarthrosis, 10 to 15. For major surgery, 30%. So, mahirap din to, no? We often get ano rin, clearance referrals for hemophilia, especially those pag merong mga appendectomy o may gulay. How are you? Or merong mga, kunwari, ruptured appendicitis, needing XLAP, but the patient is a hemophiliac. How will you do that, diba? So you have to know how many percent of factors do they need. So ideally, if you have time, you can measure your factor assay to determine how low is their factors and then compute it by weight. So kung halimbawa yung weight niya, kunwari 50 kilograms and you need 30%, so 50 times 30, 5, 10, 15, 150 ba? Tama ba? 1,500. Yun na ako sa math. So you need, ganun lang, yun yung number of units that you need, no? So you need 1,500 of factor concentrate. So ganun yung order mo. So you will infuse 1,500 units of factor 8 prior to the surgery and preferably after the surgery as well to ensure adequate healing, no? Adequate clotting and healing for your patient. Okay, so yun. So yun lang naman yung most common type of your hereditary coagulation disorder. So how about for acquired naman bleeding disorders? So usually, when you have vitamin K deficiency in liver diseases, you can find that liver transplantation, most common DIC, renal diseases, and with the use of your anticoagulant therapy. So other examples of your acquired factor deficiencies include your vitamin K deficiencies from your GI malabsorption syndromes, if there is pancreatic insufficiency, biliary obstruction, or gastrointestinal obstruction. And of course, since vitamin K deficient ka lang, your treatment is vitamin K. You give your vitamin K. So for platelet dysfunction, factor deficiencies and presence of inhibitors, again, if you have liver disease, there is abnormal synthesis of your coagulation factors and yung clearance of your medications are also deranged, no? And can also be found in, ito, most common, DIC. So yung liver, the liver plays a primary role in bleeding and coagulation disorders. So kasi mostly, so the liver, first and foremost, produces what we call our thrombopoietin. So di ba for anemia, we have erythropoietin from our kidneys. For the liver naman, we have our thrombopoietin, which produces which is the protein from which platelets or our thrombocytes are produced. So kapag may liver disease ka, mababa yung thrombopoietin mo leading to decreased platelet formation or production. Then sa liver din, nasi-synthesize yung vitamin K dependent factors. So you usually have a prolonged time, 'di ba? If you have liver disease. So yeah, so napaka-important ng role ng liver sa bleeding and disorder. So if you are presented with a patient with a bleeding disorder, always remember to work up your liver. Tapos yung renal naman, mostly for due to uremia. So if there is, so yung CKD, tapos na ata kayo sa nephromodio. So usually, if you have increased creatinine, syempre there is decreased survival of your platelets and coagulation factors leading also to your coagulopathy. Ayan. So yung treatment naman, basta easy enough as it is, always just have to identify where is the problem? Is it a platelet problem? Is it a coagulation problem? Tapos from there, determine. So kapag platelet, hanapin mo bakit. So di ba sinabi natin kanina, the differences you can easily differentiate from the physical examination, the size of bleeding, the timing of the bleeding, platelet ba to? So pag platelet, kapag um, may bleeding na massive, you can do your transfusion or you can give your vasopressin or desmopressin. Sa coagulation naman, ganun din. You have to determine is this secondary or hereditary? So if you have your hereditaries, we have our factor assays to determine which factor is missing, and then you have your factor replacement. Pag naman secondary, like liver disease, kidney disease, so always treat the underlying cause. So yun lang yung bleeding. Hindi siya masyadong, para lang siyang complicated, pero sa totoo lang, pag iisipin mo lang siya, hindi naman talaga, kailangan mo lang i-analyze. Okay, so ngayon, natapos na tayo sa bleeding. So we now move on to our hypercoagulable state. So isa lang ata yung slide ko dito sa hypercoagulable state. So sa hypercoagulable state naman, so everything that we talked about kanina about bleeding, so kabaligtaran nun. So kabaligtaran naman nun. So if there is, so usually, you will suspect a hypercoagulable state if the patient presents with thrombosis. So pwede siyang arterial or the artery or venous, so sa veins. So di ba sa physical examination, you can already distinguish din if this is arterial or venous yung thrombosis. So pag arterial, di ba yun yung dry and no pulses, walang pulse. Sa venous, they are wet, mataba, edematous, and with pulses. So ano ba yung mga disorders causing your arterial thrombosis? So it can be from an APAS, primary or secondary APAS. So mga inborn, then hyperhomocystinemia. Ito mga hereditary forms. There is a prothrombin G2021 G20210A mutation, or if there is antithrombin deficiency, protein S deficiency, and vasculitis. So yan yung nagkakos ng arterial thrombosis. So itong figure ko na to is very important. So when you're dealing kasi with thrombosis, re-referan din kayo niyan sa pag nasa IM na kayo regarding thrombosis. And most of the time, the neurologist or usually yung mga refer mga neuro or yung mga cardio, it's up to you. So, ang referral nila, refer to HEMA for hypercoagulable state. So, it's up to you to determine what is the source of your thrombosis. So, kaya, konti lang naman, di ba? Konti lang naman sila. So, first step, arterial versus venous. So, sa venous naman, so ito, nilagay natin yung percentages. So, if there is a consideration of a hereditary thrombophilia, yung hypercoagulable state, pwede mo rin siyang i-test isa-isa. Usually, nagkakaroon naman ng thrombosis kasi meron kang factor deficiency. So, di ba, dun sa unang slides natin kanina, pinesent natin there is a fine balance between gelation and fluidity. Merong mga factors na pampalabnaw, merong factors na pampakapal ng dugo, meron ding factors or proteins na pampalabnaw. So, these are our factor 5, our antithrombin, protein C, protein S, our prothrombin G20210A, or yung mga acquired, our lupus anticoagulant, and hyperhomocystinemia. So most commonly, kung halimbawa, nagsususpect ka, you are presented with a venous thrombosis, nagsususpect ka na work-up mo na siya, wala siyang lupus anticoagulant, wala siyang antiphospholipid antibody, and meron siyang familial history na So with thrombosis na hereditary pala, ang clue din dyan is the family history. Kasi nga hereditary siya. So the family members, certain family members, will also present with thrombosis in the young. Usually yung mga stroke in the young, 20 years old lang, nag-stroke na, di ba? Tapos, o kaya nag-heart attack, 30 years old lang, walang comorbidities, nag-stroke, nagkaroon ng unprovoked DVT. So, yun yung mga clue to either whether it's hereditary or an acquired form. So, kapag masyado kasing mahal, guys, kung papatest mo siya ng sabay-sabay, yung factor 5, factor protein C, protein S, so easy enough, you can request for the assays. Ganun lang yung pag-request ng test. Protein C, assay. Protein S, assay. So, makikita mo na kung low, no? Kung low sila. So, yun. So, kung halimbawa nagtitipid si patient or medyo kapos sa budget, so base mo na lang siya sa frequency. So, patest mo muna yung factor 5 Leiden kasi siya yung most common, no? So, at least 40%. So, halimbawa, na-clinch mo na yung diagnosis dyan, okay na yon. Pero kung halimbawa, normal naman yung factor 5 niya, so you can next check yung mas mataas yung frequency, so yung prothrombin, G2, 0210A, tapos yung protein C, protein S. Okay. Ayun lang. So, hindi ko na masyadong diniscuss yung thrombosis, pero more or less yun naman. And then, yung treatment for thrombosis na discuss na natin kanina, what do we give? Siyempre, our anticoagulant. So, you can use your oral using your warfarin or your NOACs, or you can use your IV forms using your unfractionated heparins or your low molecular weight heparins. Ayun lang. Wala akong case for this one kasi medyo mahirap siyang i-case eh. Pero do you have any questions? Or naintindihan nyo ba?